Hey yo, welcome to the 12th episode of Chippy Powered, the podcast for vegan athletes and entrepreneurs who want to change the world. Yo, I'm your host, Oliver Zergis, and you're joining me today, tonight actually, this morning, on a midnight session. That's right, it's 1 a.m. this morning. And I just thought I would take the opportunity because there's no one in the house, and it's just a great opportunity to just produce another awesome episode for you guys and girls. And listen, today's a blessing because we have Colleen Poling, who is a registered dietitian for the vegan movement, and she has just inspired so many people on so many different levels that it was just great to have her input on this episode. I mean, talk about external validation. She just plowed through a dream and just made it into a reality, regardless of how many times she got turned away, regardless of how little support she got. She just had to go inside and just produce it out there. And I think that's just so validating for people that are waiting for other people to ask them to start a business or start something big. No, it has to come from inside. And I think it's just great to have her share that. Also, coming to the health aspect, she shares a lot about mitochondrial health and how you can optimize your mitochondria to just be in a better state. Also, not putting every omega-3s in the same basket. I mean, there's different types. There's those that come from chia seeds and flax seeds, but also some that come from different sources. And she's going to help you debunk the myths about that and really make it into a streamlined focus so you can understand what they mean and apply them into your daily life. So without further ado, I really want you to enjoy this interview with Colleen Poling, and just make sure you go support her right after that because she deserves the support. She's brought so much to the episode, and I just really hope you enjoy it. So, see you on the other side. Great. So, I noticed on Instagram that you're a big advocate of living your life to the fullest potential and also about promoting the vegan movement. And I was just wondering, did you have like a specific moment where you realized that I have to become a registered dietitian?
Yes. So I was actually studying physics in college for my first 2 years. But I was obsessed with cooking and really into food science and the physiology of the human body and the brain. And even though I loved physics, it just didn't feel like right for me. So one night, I just kind of felt compelled to do a Google search and how I could like combine all these different things together, like the physiology and the physics, but then also the food science and cooking and dietetics and nutrition popped up, and we had that major at my school, and the next week I switched over to nutrition and dietetics, and I kind of just never looked back. And I feel that the universe conspires for us to succeed, and I was just kind of being nudged along to follow this path, and that was kind of like the very beginning of how it all started.
Okay, cool. And did you feel that you had like any pitfalls along the way, or was it like smooth sailing? Like you said, the universe had the path clear for you.
Definitely not smooth sailing at all. It was many obstacles ahead for me. So I had to do a 4-year undergraduate degree in nutrition and dietetics. Lots of science involved, biochemistry, physiology, cell biology, all that. Once I made it through there, then in the United States, to become a registered dietitian, you have to complete what's called a dietetic internship, and that's after you graduate from your bachelor's of science. And these dietetic internships are so competitive. There's less than a 50% acceptance rate, and there's more students that want to become dietitians than there are actual programs. So that's what makes it so competitive. And the first 2 times I applied for the dietetic internship, I failed to get it, and which was really devastating for me because I just did all of this undergraduate degree and like struggled to get through all the the classes and everything and make it through, and only to not be able to get an internship. But I kept trudging along and knew this was the right path for me, so I kept trying to get different experiences. I joined the AmeriCorps, and then I moved to North Carolina and did some research. So I kind of like was building up my resume. And then on the 3rd try of applying for the dietetic internship kind of residency program, I got it. And then I was able to do that. I can explain more about what that is if you have any questions. But I finished that in a year. And then after you finish the dietetic internship, you have to sit down for a board certified national exam. So then I passed that, luckily, on the first try, and then I became a dietitian. But I almost gave up a couple times throughout it. It was really difficult and kind of probably the hardest part of the whole program of becoming a dietitian is getting that internship. So
Huh.
yeah.
That's really cool. I personally cannot relate to that as much as you can because I have so much, I have none experience compared to you. And I just can say that that is 100% resilience. And would you be able to take us into the moment you realized that you were not accepted the first time you applied? Like, how did you feel and how did you know that you had to move on? Was it like you always felt you had to become a registered dietitian, or was it just like your parents motivating you? What was that?
Yeah, like you said, it was completely devastating the first and especially the second time, because then it was just like a slap in the face, like, oh my gosh, I can't even do it the second time. And what kept me motivated was I don't know, it was just something inside me that I knew I had to do, and I was just so passionate about nutrition and wellness and helping people and serving people that I just felt compelled to keep moving forward and to get this internship. And then, also making my parents proud as well was a big part of it, and showing them that I can persevere, not only for them, but for myself too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what helped me get through it.
Mm-hmm. And besides the rejection, was there anyone else that told you that you were not able to do it?
Let's see. I didn't have much support, like people rooting me on, saying that I could do it. So there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't necessarily someone saying that I couldn't do it, but there weren't many people saying that I could do it because they saw how difficult it was to become a dietitian. They kind of were like, oh, well, maybe you should. I think they were thinking in their heads, well, maybe you should just try something different because this is like almost impossible to get to get the registered dietitian. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Yeah,
had
for
to
sure.
be my own cheerleader.
Yeah, and I think, are you familiar with Gary Vee?
No.
He talks a lot about how if you want to build a business, you need to start when people ask you to start a business. But I think you're completely the example that shows that that is absolutely not the case. And had you not
Mhm.
persevered because no one was rooting for you and asking you to become a registered dietitian, you would not be inspiring so many people you are doing right now. And I think that's
Right.
a great
Definitely.
example of what you're doing right now. And so how during the acceptance phase and getting really building your resume, how exactly were you able to distinguish yourself from other participants, right? Because you said there was a 50% rejection rate. Was there did
Mhm.
they see the passion inside of you? Did you have a specific skill set that helped you along? What was it?
Yeah. So there's kind of two sides to that. There's the side of like the strategic side of getting the internship and looking at all the different types and what their emphasis was, and kind of weeding out the ones that maybe had like more of a clinical emphasis, which is something I like really didn't see myself going down towards like long term. And then kind of focusing more on the internships that had like a more balanced emphasis, like focusing on leadership, for example. So there's one specific internship that focused on leadership as their emphasis, and then I really kind of honed in on that one and then started building up my leadership skills. So like I would join the AmeriCorps and then, help underprivileged children with nutrition and exercise, and kind of built some leadership there, and then got some research experience, like writing articles, so then some leadership experience there, but then finding like a very balanced type of internship, and then building that experience so I could
Mm.
up my chances a little bit more for that specific internship.
Mm-hmm. And how old were you back
So
then when you were doing the internships?
let's see, I was about 20, 21,
Okay,
around that
okay,
time. Hmm.
okay. And like looking back now, do you feel you could have done anything different?
Yeah, I could have done a couple things different. Like during my undergrad, I could have built my own experience up during that time, like worked and did school and like did more. But I feel like, I don't know, I'm kind of one of those people that feels like everything happens for a reason, and I was saying before, the universe kind of conspires for us to succeed in
Hmm.
our own way. And I feel like if I didn't fail to get the internship those two times, then I wouldn't have become the person I am today. And maybe I wouldn't even have had this message that I'm giving out if I didn't have that experience of not getting the internships. I think it all happened for a reason, and looking back, I don't think I would have changed it because I'm really happy with where I'm at today.
Uh-huh. Okay, and I really want to dive into that. I want to dive into veganism. There's a lot of things I want to ask you. Maybe can we fast forward? And I'd like to ask you, how did you start getting, say, your first clients as a registered dietitian? Was it people referring them to you, or were you going directly to them and offering them like free advice? How did you go about it?
Yeah, I really recommend like kind of starting your own community, and that's kind of how I initially started getting clients, is just being connected with people and building community and showing people like you have this passion and you have this knowledge, and connecting with them on a one-on-one basis, and then building that trust and then that community, and then people kind of, it's like word of mouth, it kind of spreads within the community. And yeah, that's the number one thing I'd recommend if you're looking to build a clientele is, yeah, social media is great and you can, get some connections there, but was like really finding that community within your own, where you live, and people around you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And did, like, let's say you started getting that client base, did you ever go for the ask and say, hey, I'd like to charge you for that? Like, I'm going very specific, but was it always them like say,
Yeah.
hey, I really enjoyed what you gave me. I'd like to like pay for the advice you given me.
Yeah. So people would come to me and they're saying, you have a lot to offer. What can I do coaching with you? And I would say, yeah, and then, this is what I offer, and if they're interested, then we would take it from there.
Okay, I like that answer. I think it's very validating, especially like I know a few young business owners like myself, and my mentor always taught me it's always about H to H. It's not about B to C or B to B, right? You want to create a human connection at first, especially when you're starting, and the value is always going to come back before. And I think it's just absolutely validating that you're saying that.
Exactly. Exactly. There might be a little bit more time that you put into it up front, kind of like grassroots, and it might feel overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, I should have more people following me by now, or I should have a bigger group. But like if there's 10 people that you really connect with, like, pretend that there's 1 million people, and then they will see that and they'll see the value, and then the word will spread like wildfire.
And what did you like specifically help those clients at first? Was there like any reoccurring struggle, that pattern that you saw and that you could immediately identify, or was it like, what was like a major struggle that you found in clients?
I would say one of the biggest struggles was just making sure, in terms of like vegan, vegetarian nutrition, a lot of people are worried about not, missing certain nutrients, and making sure that they're getting everything that they need, and kind of honing in on like their lab work and looking to see, are they really getting everything that they need? Because a lot of them come with like fatigue and low energy, and that's kind of like the number one thing I see is people really want to know, like, how can I get my energy back? What am I missing? And also variety, I think, is a big one. People get stuck in the same rut of eating the same things over and over. And a varied diet can just make sure you're covering all the nutritional bases and keeps you safe from overexposed chemicals and things like that. So we looked at a lot of the variety too, because people get kind of stuck in a rut.
Okay. And maybe can I ask you, like, what would you tell these people? Let's say I come to you and I say I have problems, like I feel I'm getting a lot of free radicals. I'm not sure I'm being too dogmatic about my vegan diet. Like, how would you help me exactly?
Yeah, so there are a lot of like too many stories to count where vegans, vegetarians who start off great for the first couple of years, but then they start to feel fatigued and sick, sometimes hair loss, anxiety, diminished sex drive, even mental breakdowns. But then as a solution to this, like a properly managed vegan diet is really important. So what we would do is we would first ask all these questions. How are you feeling? How you have any mood swings, any bouts of depression? Are you having brain fog? Then we would take a deeper look at their blood work, and there's a specific panel that I like to recommend. And then from there, we kind of look at all the different body systems. We check out the brain and nervous system, and making sure we're getting all the nutrients for that system. And then for bones, healthy bones, so making sure we're hitting all those nutrients that will build up healthy bones. And then one specific, it's not necessarily a body system, but it's the mitochondria that I really like to look at, because that's kind of like an overlooked component of the body that we see the brain, we see the heart, and we got a cardiovascular system, but the mitochondria is, the powerhouse of the cell, and a lot of issues can stem from unhealthy mitochondria. So then we also look at that to see how we can boost the mitochondria, and that in turn will boost our energy levels.
Huh. Okay, that's really cool. Like I'm currently in health science in like CGIP, you could say. It's like the transition between high school and university. And we're talking a lot about mitochondria, but we're not like seeing any application. So it's really cool that you bring that up and you bring like, hey, we can actually work with mitochondria and help clients that have difficulties there.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a lot of cool things that in different superfoods that we can include in the diet to help boost the mitochondria. And then, also things like reducing stress and meditating, and looking at the mindset part of it too, not only the nutrition, but the mindset that can help to boost our mitochondrial health.
How do you exactly use the mindset to boost that?
So stress is like so intertwined with all of our systems, especially our mitochondrial health. So I would recommend like some sort of meditation practice or stress reduction. We would like dive a little bit deeper on like what are the current stressors going on in your life, and how can we create goals to help support you to reduce that stress. The stress is kind of just one of those hidden things that we don't really think is affecting us, but it really is like deep down all the way to our mitochondria.
I wanted to actually ask you about stress, but also about supplementation. I'm going to go directly into stress. But then I feel there's like two sides of the coin, right? Like there's one side that says you should eliminate stress as much as possible, but then the other side says stress is beneficial for growth. So where do you find that middle ground between optimizing stress to grow as a person, but not limiting yourself and stressing you out?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's certain types of stress, like exercise. You're going to put stress. You have to put stress on your body to exercise in order to grow your muscles and get stronger. But then there's the point where there's a stress that feels completely overwhelming, and then from the blood work we can see that cortisol levels are out of control, and hormones are off, and then that's when we can see that the stress is having a reverse effect versus a positive effect.
Okay, so it's really with blood work, and then you can identify it easy with that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Going into supplementing now, I know like as a young vegan and like talking to other vegans that have just turned, like one of the thing we want to identify the least with is the supplement industry and taking in pills, taking in extra supplements. And I know I've struggled a lot with that and trying not to take my B12 and getting it from alternative sources like, let's say, soy milk. Even though there is supplementation in it added, I don't feel like I'm indulging into that industry per se. So do you think it's possible to go about a vegan diet, vegetarian diet, without taking supplements?
I think it might be possible, but it's really hard. And there's specific nutrients, kind of like the B12, where it's like you could get it from, supplemented or fortified foods like milk and nutritional yeast and things like that. But then making sure you're monitoring your blood work to make sure, like, okay, what I'm eating is actually in turn being absorbed, and this is what it is. Because B12, for example, is one of those nutrients that you got to be really careful with, because over time it can cause irreversible nerve damage, and then also it can be related to heart disease and heart attack, stroke, because if we're not getting enough B12, then it can increase our homocysteine levels, and then homocysteine levels is linked to heart disease. So it's kind of like keeping an eye on those, like 6 months to a year, looking at the blood work to see if what we are eating is actually showing up in the blood, like I was saying. But kind of going back to your question, is it possible? I guess it depends on person to person. Like one specific nutrient that I think vegans are just not getting enough of is DHA. And DHA is it's a vital omega-3 fatty acid. And most vegans get a specific type of omega-3 fatty acid called ALA in the form of hemp seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great, but the problem is that we're not able to convert enough of that ALA from the plant to the DHA and the EPA. And then if you're insulin resistant or you're deficient in certain vitamins like zinc and magnesium, biotin, and some other ones, then you'll be converting over even less. So it's like 5% or less of that ALA is converted to the DHA. And the DHA is so important because a deficiency can result in serious mental and physical health problems. And the DHA is like a very important structural component of the brain and the retina. So it also helps to protect the vascular system, combats cancer, and helps with learning and memory. So like so many amazing things with this DHA that we might not be getting enough of. So that's one of the things, okay, we'll look at the labs and the blood to see if we're getting enough or not, then we might have to supplement with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a bit of a lot of info, but like
Yeah.
absolutely, that makes us a lot of very passionate about it. And I think like we're all gonna look after. I'm personally gonna look up all of this after, and maybe like because this is like you definitely studied it, so you know it for, like on the back of your hand. As someone who's not necessarily ingrained into like that type of mindset, or yeah. Like, where would you suggest we get started? Should we just like go get like hire directly, go see a registered dietitian, or is there like a resource specifically online that you like to read, or where do you get your information from?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say not all registered dietitians have experience in vegan vegetarian nutrition, and that's the problem. Is like most registered dietitians, especially in the United States, are kind of what we learned in school was like USDA, which is like the United States of Agriculture food pyramid, kind of like my plate recommendations, and most dietitians just don't have that background unless they specialize in vegan vegetarian nutrition. So I would first recommend, if you're going to see a dietitian and you are vegan, to look into one that has experience in the plant-based world. And then also checking out like the science of it too, because it's not all about like the animal part's really important too, but the nutrition is also important. So nutritionfacts.org, I believe. Dr. Greger, he's a good one. Have you heard of him before?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So he looks a lot at the science, and which is important because the science is what we need to be looking at and seeing the research behind it. But then I also like to look at other people besides in the vegan world that have a lot of important things to say too. So I might not necessarily agree with everything they have to say, but they do have a lot of good things to say. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Dave Asprey, but he's kind of like the bulletproof guy, and he looks a lot into the mitochondria part of it and mitochondrial health and how healthy fats can be good for us and not to shy away too much from specific types of fats. Ben Greenfield is a really good one. He looks a lot at the science and looks at like different superfoods and detox kind of things. Yeah, so those would be kind of a couple different ones I'd recommend to kind of start off with if you're interested in looking more.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know like there's so many like questions I want to ask you right now, and I know your time is limited, like your time is valuable. I'd like to ask you, like, no one seems to answer this question, and I'd love for you to have a go at it. In terms, I asked some people like, hey, why are you not vegan, that have previously tried the vegan diet, and they say, listen, I just felt very cold. I felt I had no energy, and it just didn't resonate with me. Especially for women, I feel I feel it's what was it called? Lack of iron.
Right.
They like iron because of the menstrual cycle. And I was wondering, do you feel the vegan diet is possible for everyone, or is there like still a certain type of person that is not able to go on a vegan diet?
I think that not everyone is able to go on a vegan diet. That's kind of just my personal professional opinion. Depending on the person, I would say like the majority of people can, but they're going to be like those certain outliers that are going to feel better if they have some animal products in their diet. For example, if they have a bunch of allergies, like I met someone the other day who was allergic to nuts, allergic to seeds, allergic to like all these different things where they would need to get a lot of their vital nutrients from, and that they wouldn't be able to unless they took like a shitload of supplements,
Uh-huh.
And then we don't want to be taking supplements for every single nutrient.
Uh-huh.
It might be good to fill in some gaps, but not, as our main source of nutrients. So depending on the person, it might not be possible. But with that said, the majority of people, I think it is possible. And then that example that you were giving of, the person that might be low in iron, well, maybe they're just not doing it right, because a vegan diet does require, some special attention.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I like that answer. I really like that answer. I'm really grateful for that. How can people connect with you?
People can find me on Instagram at Nutrition Translator. I like to call myself Nutrition Translator because, especially in the vegan world, it can be kind of tricky to translate all the different jargon that's happening and kind of distinguish, all the things that are happening online. And I like to just kind of translate the science into an easy and understandable way. But yeah, Nutrition Translator, or nutritiontranslator.com is my website if you're interested in checking that out and looking at working with me with coaching.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Colleen, for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Oliver. It was my pleasure.
Hey, if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you so much for supporting the community. And listen, go check out Colleen's Instagram page. Go connect with her. Go share some love. She deserves it. After all, she's brought a lot. And if you've made it this far, again, you've probably learned a lot. And you better go apply something before you listen to another episode. I dare you to take the information you got into this and actually apply them into real time and create a better life for yourself. Wherever you're at, there is a way you can challenge yourself. There is a way you can take a step in the right direction, regardless of who you're surrounded with, regardless of what's happening right now in your life. So I just want to leave you with this amazing thoughts. If you want to get some amazing apparel for vegan athletes, go check out my Instagram bio. It's out there. And thank you so much for supporting the podcast.